Welcome everybody to our biweekly office hours. As always, we're going to take a few minutes to let folks start rolling in here. Exciting day. We got a special guest joining us today, which I'll introduce in just a moment. But sit tight while we allow everyone to kind of roll in here. We'll give it about 2 minutes, and then we'll get rolling. Yep, we're recording, so that's good. All right, we'll give it another 30 seconds and we will start rocking and rolling here. All right, let's have some fun here. So welcome everybody. I'm Bill Rabbit, CFS, for those of you who have been with our membership. You've seen my face before. For those of you who are new to our membership and maybe it's your first time at the biweekly office hours, I'm Bill Rabbit, one of the co-founders of CFS. Typically, these office hours are conducted by myself and co-founder Matt Carpenter. But Matt Carpenter can't join us today, so we actually got the next best thing. We got another Matt Mulhern, who is our VP of Sales, one of our top advisors. Next to Matt Carpenter and myself, Matt Mulhern, who we call him Vern, so I might slip and call him Vern. Probably has worked with the most amount of families going through this process over the past probably 10 years. Is that right, Vern?
Yeah. And especially this year with the challenges of COVID and, appeals going back to last year. So with, topics we're covering, well-versed and hopefully shed some light on, how to go about this process. And feel free with any questions.
Yeah. So to that point, just kind of housekeeping items as always. Any questions, throw in the Q&A, not the chat box. Okay, that lets us kind of filter through, and you could put those questions in anonymously. It helps us kind of keep a transcript of them and everything. So, for you veterans here, you already know that. For you newbies, just a word of direction there before we start digging in. And again, this is sort of these office hours are meant to give live access to, financial aid experts. So fire away, whether you are an underclassman, freshman, sophomore, junior, or if you're a senior, even though you're going to be at different parts of this college process, fire away with any and all questions. Okay. So obviously if you're a parent of a current senior, you're in the thick of, award season, and award season with that comes along, first and foremost, getting your awards from these colleges. Okay. And for the most part, everyone should have gotten a financial aid award, for better or for worse, from the schools that their students been accepted to at this point. Okay. The next step is, understanding what that award looks like. And we kind of went over this 2 weeks ago, but understanding your award, does it look appropriate? Do you feel you've been under awarded? If we feel like we've been over awarded, that's the dream scenario. And then thinking about issuing an appeal. Okay. And we could revisit some of the appeal topics. I don't want to harp on that too much. I know we've covered it a decent amount, but I'm sure Matt Mulhern here has plenty of stories and anecdotes he can share that he's currently going through with some clients here. And then now we're starting to look out towards May 1st, right? May 1st is that universal deadline. Housing deposits are due. Um, Typically, housing deposits fall within $300 to $800. Okay, kind of a lot will fall in the middle at $500. Basically, your housing deposit is telling the school, yes, we accept your offer. We're going to be coming there next year. Please hold our spot. Okay. Um, Maybe something for us to talk on, and maybe, Vern, this might be something for you to comment on here is, when is it appropriate to double deposit? And double deposit, to be specific, is when you essentially send a housing deposit to more than one school. Could be two schools, could be three schools. Um, and that's a practice that at the school's perspective is somewhat frowned upon, but as a parent and a family's, it could be done somewhat strategically. So I guess we could start there. Vern, what are your thoughts and experience with, strategically, or, the concept of double depositing?
Right. So for starters, why would you send a double deposit, right? Why would anyone do that? Essentially, what you're doing is buying yourself time, right? You're buying yourself time, till August 1st, August 15th, instead of May 1st, where you're holding your spot at two different schools, right? I'll give you a couple examples of when I've seen this done before, right? A couple of years ago, I had a client who, in order to go to the school was making him take a calculus summer course, right? And depending upon what grade he received on that calculus, it had to be B or better. If he got a B, he was admitted. And this is a little bit of a rarity, but if he got a B or better, he was admitted. If not, he wasn't getting admitted, right? So they were kind of forced to. They had to send another deposit to another school, basically to hold their spot, right? And like Bill said, it's kind of on the sly, right? You're kind of taking that spot, kind of hedging your bets in a sense. More usually, where you're going to do that is when you kind of have an outstanding appeal, right? We talked about appeals, how this process works. Some schools are very good at turning appeals around. Other schools, high volume, right? And just by nature of it's not like they have unlimited manpower. It takes a while. So it's possible that you have a pending appeal, right, that goes past May 1st. Well, May 1st is our decision day. So, depending on the finances and where that appeal lands, you may want to secure your spots in multiple schools, right? And see how that appeal ends up shaking out, right? And see what the actual cost of the school is going to be, before, kind of making your final decision. So essentially the rationale, the motivation behind sending a double deposit is basically buying yourself time for whatever the circumstances may be. Now, with that being said, you essentially have to be willing to lose that deposit money, right? If you go back to the school that you wind up, if you do a double deposit and go back to the school, you say, we wind up not going there. Have we seen, schools give that money back? Yes, right? But it's certainly not guaranteed. So essentially, you kind of have to be willing to put both those deposits down and willing to lose one of them, essentially. So that's kind of that's kind of the drawback or the negative. Again, with the added benefit, if whether it be appeal, whether it be an academic issue, essentially you're buying yourself 3 extra months.
Yeah. No, that was a very good explanation. And I think the other thing to be mindful of, and we spoke about it the past couple of weeks, that this year is a little bit different in terms of some kind of law changes where colleges can reach out to students after May 1st. Okay. This is the first year that we're going to see this in practice, but formally, May 1st was the deadline. After May 1st, colleges could not make any offers or, reach out to any students. Okay. So, just something to be on the radar here is that colleges may, may approach you after May 5th. I'm sorry, May 1st. And I think that's going to be a good thing. It's promoting competition, right? Sometimes we can leverage those sort of things. certainly in appeals and if a college comes back with, hey, listen, after May 1st, we're able to increase your award. That might even cause you to go back with, not that, appealing multiple times at your top school, but if you have additional leverage here, you might be able to then use that, at your top school. So that's just more of an FYI that this is the first year. I'm kind of excited to see how this plays itself out and how this kind of competition can help the consumers here. Um, the other part of me is also, that there is something to, okay, it's May 1st. We made it. We went through all these hoops, the ups and the downs, the strategy, the school shopping, the applications, the awards, the appeals, and we made a school. The process isn't over, and I'm going to kind of walk you through sort of the next step of the process in terms of, which really is a big one, is okay, well, how the hell are we going to pay for this thing? And we're only going to scratch the surface on that today. But, there is something to, okay, well, we got the school. We did our very best to get that, cost down as much as possible. Take a deep breath. We kind of know our target. But in any event, I think the pros outweigh the cons with this situation where post May 1st colleges can kind of reach out. So here's what I want to do. I want to start to talk about this next phase of the process. And if you have any questions about the appeals process, or even if you just want to share your experience, we love sharing wins. We've had plenty of wins this year on the appeals front. We have some that are pending we feel optimistic about. If you want to share any wins in the chat or in Q&A, please feel free. I think that's, a good practice. And even if it's you got an additional $2,000, well, that's $2,000 times 4. You got an additional $8,000 of tax-free money not coming out of your pocket, not having to be borrowed. So I think that's actually a good reminder as well is, appeals are not guaranteed. The expectation should be 0. Anything on top of 0, you've hit a home run. So celebrate those wins. And if you want to share that, that's amazing. So now, as we spend a little time in your College Aid Pro account, and before I dig in here, I just want to make mention there's a little bit of confusion as we sort of transitioned over to a new membership platform. And just to be clear, you at this point in time, you're going to have 2 different logins. You're going to have your login to College Aid Pro. And if you are an existing member, have been with us, this is not going to be, not anything new. It's going to be your existing login. If you are new to the membership, you will, and just to give a quick run through here, you could always get access to your membership through our homepage. I need financial aid. Okay, so everyone should be familiar with this. To log into your College Aid Pro account, you could just go here, click there, and it's going to bring you to the login page. You're just going to have to log in again. Now, if you're new to the membership and you created your login to the membership platform, the main content piece of it, you still have to go one step in terms of creating your College Aid Pro account, which you can do that right here. Okay. So again, just as a summary here, if you're an existing member and you have your login to the main content site, you have your login to College Aid Pro, you just go to our main site, ineedfinancialaid.com, go to the members area, log in. All the recordings, all the content is here. If you want to log into your College Aid Pro account, click there, put your credentials in, and you're good to go. If you're new, you've created access to this main membership area, you may still have to create your College Aid Pro account, and you can do that right there. Okay. For those of you who, if you're on today, you're registered for these office hours, this is, sort of, not significant. But for many of you folks who still have not registered for these bi-weekly office hours, you can register right here through this link. Okay, so we've had a really big influx of new members, and obviously you're going to get all the recordings just by being a member. But if you want to participate and ask questions, you'll have to be registered. Okay, so just some uh, just some quick kind of housekeeping items there. So now what I want to spend time in, and Matt, just you can kind of chime in and stop me wherever. But the way we built this process is we built it in or this software kind of chronologically. So when we're in the schools tab, that's when we're really kind of in the shopping phase, understanding what our budget is, understanding what these colleges are potentially going to cost us, ideally before we even apply. Then we sort of go into our applications portal, managing, the FAFSA CSS profile, getting all the applications in. Now we're kind of in the awards piece where we're getting awards back. And, these awards can come in so many different ways, whether it's via email, whether it's hard copy, you know, or on student portals. They're kind of all over the place. And there's about 300 different versions of the way that these colleges can present the information. Very hard to understand, especially during an emotional time. So this page really just helps us pull out the important information, because ultimately what we want to do at this point in the process is start working with actual numbers, right? Up until this point, we had to use College Aid Pro to based off of projections, and we're very proud of our software in terms of how we're able to project need, how we're able to project merit scholarships. But now we want to get down and transition over to using actual figures. So we can start that process by taking the financial aid award and kind of putting the pieces of the puzzle in here to ultimately get down to the brass tacks of this, right? Let's compare apples to apples of what this is actually going to cost my family. Okay, so some financial aid awards will include right on their award what the tuition, room and board, what these fees are. And if that's the case, by all means, take that information and fill out these boxes. Some financial aid awards won't do that. They're just going to tell you what your grant, scholarship, loans are. So in that case, you could just hit the default button and it's going to default to the cost figures that we have in the database. Okay. No one is going to know exactly what their college bill is until I believe it's June, right, Matt? When do they start sending it out?
Yes, yeah. So they don't even know their exact tuition rates yet, right? So again, like everything else in this process, every school is kind of different. So I think usually the first bill that you're going to see is August 1st. Most of them are August 15th. But once you do select your school, I would advise to kind of go on their website, right? Because a lot of them offer payment plans. So you can see what month the payment plan starts in, and they have that recurring for continuing students. So sometimes you'll see the payment plan starts in May. That's not necessarily true for incoming students. But again, listen, like everything else in this process, it's school by school, right? So you have to check out whatever school you're attending and see what options they're offering. But traditionally, I would say the most common kind of tuition date is usually going to be August 15th, with obviously exceptions existing.
Yep. Okay. And we got a good question in the Q&A, and so let me stop myself and answer that right now. And Matt, as you're kind of looking at the Q&A, any good questions that you think sort of the group will benefit from, just kind of leave them in there and we'll kind of address it out loud. Any quick hitters, feel free to, type them the answer. But the question here is, our top choice school offered much less aid than anticipated, especially compared to the net price calculator on their website, or another school with similar costs. There's about a $20,000 difference. Any tips on how to proceed with the appeal, and figure out what they could have possibly missed to come up with a much lower financial aid award? Is it possible that schools can come up with such a different offer based on the same info? So just as a summary here, top choice came in with a much lower award as compared to similar colleges who gave about $20,000 more. And this kind of really shines a light on that, especially if we're talking about private schools. And if I remember the post in the community, we are talking about private schools, is that private schools, you have to look at them as independent businesses, right? Each of those colleges, financial aid offices, they do get the same information, but each of those colleges can interpret that information in really any way they see fit. Okay, there are some standards that they follow, but especially if you're a business owner, if you own real estate, sometimes in divorce separated situations, these private colleges can view them much differently. Okay. Unfortunately, in this case, the top choice viewed that situation um, not in a good way. Okay. And one of the common reasons for this um, is if you're a business owner, and you've probably heard us talk about this during this appeal season, is these colleges, especially the private colleges, are going to request your full federal tax returns, right? All schedules. They're also going to request business or corporate returns. And what they'll do is they're going to look at that, and some schools will say, okay, well, they wrote off this amount. These are the business expenses. The IRS is cool with that. We're cool with that. Other colleges, you know, they actually can be even more strict than the IRS. Okay. And what they'll do is they might add back some items to your income. So they might say, okay, well, you have depreciation of this amount. Well, we're going to just we're assuming that that's a paper loss, so we're going to add that back to their adjusted gross income. Okay, they had these write-offs. These seem legitimate. These seem not legitimate. We're going to take the some of these write-offs, add it back to the income. So now when they add it back to your income, your EFC goes up, your need goes down, and that allows them justification to offer you less. Now, we had a really interesting case, and I don't know if you could shoot a note in the chat and let us know if you are, in fact, self-employed or a business owner. But client of mine was, and the school was Lehigh. Okay. This client happened to be self-employed business owner. Okay. And we use College Aid Pro here to give us cost projections, and we did a good, better, best, kind of, or kind of worst case, best case projections, because this was a business owner. He had some write-offs, he had some depreciation, and he had, some business losses, things like that. So we kind of coached him up and said, here's, if they take it right off of the tax returns, here's what you can expect, but be prepared for some of these private colleges, and this was a good student, looking at some elite private schools. He said, just be prepared how some of these colleges can interpret this. And as the same situation, accepted to most schools, his top choice came in drastically lower than what the second and third college choices came in at. So it's kind of the same scenario here. And it took a lot of, digging to pull out kind of the facts here, but we knew it had something to do with his business, right? And we have a lot of resources on our side of the fence that we bring in, some who have worked in the financial aid office, some who are tax professionals. This client wrote their CPA in, and what we were able to do is reverse engineer how they justified their award, right? So we were able to deduce they must have not taken into account the depreciation, not taken account this, that, or the other. And really what they ended up doing is adding back about $60,000 in income towards their AGI, right? And because when we did that, and one of the ways that we reverse engineered that was, by looking at those items, kind of taking a look at the business return, kind of making assumptions on here's what they probably would question they might not honor this. It totaled 60 grand. We put it back onto the income. We ran another net price calculator and we came out to a very similar award that they gave us. So that is, kind of a very high level synopsis of how we reverse engineered it. So if, one of the options, if this seems to resonate with you, you can schedule a consultation with one of our reps. We have a specific offering around appeals, where we could get our professionals in on it, do that reverse engineering, kind of structure that argument for you. So feel free to kind of raise your hand, schedule a consultation. And in that consult, and it very well might be with Matt Mulhern. They'll do a review to say, yeah, this is worth your time and energy, or it's not worth your time and energy. But if we're talking about a private school, you're a business owner, it's kind of shaping up to a similar experience that we had with my client. And kind of long story short here is that we had a very successful outcome at Lehigh. Once we kind of formulated the argument, we had to explain that the depreciation was not a paper loss. It was, in fact, an actual loss that did reduce the amount of money coming into the pockets of this family. You kind of argue these things. They then took that income off and repackaged them. And it was one of our biggest appeals to date, or at least for this year. And I think it was a swing of about $25,000, something like that, which, that's just tremendous. That's, and that sets the stage for the following years as well. So we could, if we wanted to really be generous to ourselves, we could call that $100,000 appeal right there. So consider a consultation. If not, that's how you'd want to approach that. Sorry, there's a very long answer to this question, but you would want to obviously submit an appeal. You're going to use the other awards that you have as, part of your justification. Hey, here's our second and third choice. We're forced to consider them, but we're also unsure why they came in with a much higher award. Can you explain the difference? Have the net price calculator in your appeal as well. We also put in use your net price calculator. We made our decision based on that. Explain to me the difference here between your net price calculator and the award. And really, they should be forced to tell you that, and that'll generate the discussion. And once they let you know, hey, here's the reasons, why we package you this way, then it's your opportunity to start really poking holes in that and justifying your stance. Matt, you have anything kind of to add to that?
Yeah. So I had a similar little anecdote. I watched you 2 years ago. I'll never forget it. But let me just first start by saying, when it comes to aid, especially at these higher end schools, and whoever asked the question, if you mind sharing the schools that you're dealing with, because again, right, I can't stress enough, every school is their own entity, right? And every school, runs their shop differently. Some schools take the approach of, all right, your kid got in here. That's the hard part. We're going to do everything we can to get you here, right? Not every school's like that, right? Some schools are going to go through your tax returns, et cetera, with a fine tooth comb, specifically, Vassar. So I've dealt with Vassar a lot. Again, so to the whole point, right? What you need to get them to do is adjust your EFC, right? So when you look at the capital, you have the federal EFC. That's the one that comes right off the FAFSA, right? That's black and white. Specifically with a business owner, now you're looking at the institutional EFC. And like Bill just laid out, right, every school has a little different variants of how they calculate that institutional EFC, right? So what you need to get, your goal in the appeal is adjust the EFC, right? You have to get the EFC lowered. So that's the approach, and that's really what you're aiming for, right? And just kind of give you a little background, how it actually works is you're going to appeal to one specific financial aid counselor. I know someone asked a Northeastern question, they appeal to the one counselor. How it actually works is they take that appeal, the one counselor, they're not making the decision, right? They then go in front of the team, right? They say, okay, the Mulhern family's appealing, they have an offer from X school, right? It's $20,000 more. How do we kind of arrive here? What can we do for this family, right? And they make that decision kind of as a group, as a team. But when you go through the appeal process, The whole goal, right, is to lower the EFC. Now, this is need-based appeal, right? When we're talking about need-based investors, primarily need-based, you need to get them to lower the EFC, right? What helps in doing that is understanding how they arrived at the EFC, right? What components were included in in the institutional EFC at Vassar, Northeastern, or whatever school you're dealing with. Now, some schools are more forthcoming with that information than not, right? Some schools guard that with a, they're not going to tell you. So others will. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of it depends on who you speak with, who you get on the phone, who answers your emails, who are you dealing with. But, that's the goal. So if you had that wide a disparity, and again, the second choice school, well, Vassar's a very good with need. So the second choice school that offered 20 grand more, they have a lower EFC for you, right? That's singly what it comes down to. So your goal is to get Vassar to lower the EFC. That's the long and short of it.
Yeah, and you press them on, why you're seeing certain results from others, and they are required to have that conversation with you, and make sure if you are on the phone, speak to decision makers, supervisors. Don't
Good
talk
point.
to the frontline folks because they're trained to turn you away. But they are required to let you know why they package you the way, and I'm sure, I feel confident in that's the approach. Say, hey, here's what we got, net price calculator awards. Explain to us why there's such disparity. Okay. Matt, we got a question here. I think because you typed it in, I'm not totally following it.
Yeah,
Would that
I
be
was answering
communicated by now or still forthcoming? Could you just kind of revisit the question, I guess, as a whole?
No, so they were asking, they had sent an appeal into Northeastern, and they hadn't heard back one way or another. They hadn't kind of even heard that it was received, and just kind of advised, listen, we never advise them being rude in any way, shape, or form, but I kind of take and advise my clients, kind of squeaky wheel gets the oil mentality, right? Ping them, get on their radar. What's the status? Just checking in, make sure you received it. Is there any update? Do you need anything else? Right? Don't fall by the wayside, essentially, right? You're obviously not the only family that these folks are dealing with. So, again, do not be rude. You're not getting anywhere with that. But, a little annoying possibly, right? But, kind of get yourself to the front of the line, have them, review and at the very least just confirm, that they received. Again, going back to Northeastern, sometimes they'll have an automatic, email that says we received your appeal. Sometimes they don't. Again, there's no set standard as far as that's concerned. So again, I would just check in with them, make sure they got it. And a lot of times what happens is when they get that second email, make sure they got it, they'll go and work on it right then and there. I've seen that a lot. So definitely want to, make sure you're doing your due diligence and following up with it.
Couple other
Michigan
good questions
Merit
falling in here, Matt. So go ahead. I'll let you kind of take the reins here.
Oh yeah, so there was a question about specifically Michigan. Michigan. So Michigan obviously is a public school. Michigan's a little bit of an outlier, along with UVA, UNC Chapel Hill, Cal Berkeley. Right, they consider themselves the public Ivies. So there may be some room. I don't know where you guys fell. Traditionally, public schools, even outside of those public Ivies. Okay, so I thought we were talking about needs. So talking about merit at public schools. Usually how they're going to award merit, or a lot of schools how they award merit specifically for out-of-state students, and I know you're not out of state in Michigan, but how most public schools award, they'll give you a half out-of-state offset or a full out-of-state offset, right? And usually the full, for the most part, is kind of their top award. But if they and a lot of these schools are you have to have, a certain SAT or GPA. And at Michigan, if your son or daughter got in, if they got some extra, if you're gearing towards merit, if they got an extra award, their GPA went up, whatever, right? That's where you're dealing with. That goes to the admissions office. But a lot of the public schools give half out of state offsets, full out of state offsets. If you get a half out of state offset, like I'll give you a perfect example. Last year at Florida State, had a client, he got $7,500 as an out of state offset. Coached them up, was on the phone with them. They actually went down to visit Florida State. They were going anyway. They sat with the admissions counselor, basically got that 7,500 half out of state offset, bumped up to 15,000 full out of state offset, right? So time well spent. So that's kind of a lot of times where where the leverage lies. Oftentimes, if your kid had a 32 ACT, for that full out-of-state offset, they won't consider students with less than 33, right? So they might be right on the precipice. So that's something that you can use the CAP tool, kind of do your due diligence and see what award they actually got and where the next higher award falls in terms of what the school is looking for as far as academics is concerned. That's specifically at a lot of the big public schools. You can include Michigan there. But going back to what I thought you were asking, so Michigan, UNC, Virginia, and Cal Berkeley are the 4 public Ivies who, most public schools, as Bill mentioned in the beginning, pretty standard, really not much need-based aid there, with those 4 being the exception. So again, I'm not exactly sure what your situation is, but those are kind of your, at Michigan, there is both, an avenue for need and merit, unlike a lot of public schools.
Yeah, and I think, to kind of expand on that, with the Michigans, Chapel Hills, if you're in state, which I believe I read that this, whoever kind of wrote this question is in state, and Michigan happens to be their in-state school, even though they're kind of an, public Ivy, as they call them, and they function more like a private school, if you're in state, that cost of attendance is much lower. So really, they're functioning more like publics. The out-of-staters can kind of view them a little bit more through the lens that they are more like a private institution. Hopefully that didn't further complicate things, but just to kind of be clear there.
Yeah, Bill, we had another, I guess they're a few minutes late. So another question about, double acceptances. So we touched on that earlier. You could grab the recording. But yeah, with COVID, right? You're not able to get to the school. They weren't open, etc. That's another good point. Honestly, I really hadn't thought of that one. But so the short answer is yes, you can, accept, you can send deposits in and claim your spot at more than 2 colleges, right? And again, whatever the motivation, COVID, you want to see the school, 100% understood. What I would first do before you send, sometimes, and this last year, obviously because we were in the thick of COVID, everything got pushed back to June 1st. But I had a couple folks who asked for extensions on their decision, and they got bumped back, a couple weeks, right? So before actually sending a deposit, I would start there, right? Can we get an extension? We wanted to visit the campus, weren't able to because of COVID. Start there, right? Save yourself the deposit money if possible. But if that doesn't work out, or you need more time, essentially, yes, you can send 2 deposits in. And basically what you're doing is buying yourself time, right? Basically holding 2 spots, you're buying yourself time till the middle of August, when most tuition payments come due, or the start of tuition comes due. And you could, again, kind of the downside there, you kind of have to be prepared to lose that second deposit, right? Again, sometimes schools will give it back to you, but not always. But yes, so long and short, yes, you can submit multiple deposits and hold your spot at more than 1 spot. Start with asking for an extension. Maybe that can buy yourself time so you can go see the campus. If not, send the deposit in, secure the spot, and then you can make a decision in a couple of months.
Another question here on multiple deposits. Can the school see where else you deposited? No, they can't. They can't see where you put in other deposits. It is a practice that's frowned upon. That's kind of the lexicon around that. And it's only frowned upon because these colleges, all they're worried about, not all they're worried about, but their biggest concern is confirming that they have their beds full. If they don't have their beds full, they start to, lose money. It hurts their business, and they don't run efficient businesses as it is. So they don't see where else the deposits go. And I wouldn't go out of your way to, have that conversation. But they don't see where they go. Let's see. Any experience with Lafayette on merit award appeals? So I think this came up 2 weeks ago. Lafayette is a school that, yes, they're an excellent school. I would consider them an elite school. They're one of those schools that they're fantastic with need-based financial aid, and they also have some merit programs. Okay. Now, if your student is awarded a merit scholarship at Lafayette, you have an excellent, tremendous student, right? I think it's only 5% of, uh, maybe I'll just kind of share my screen because I want to make sure I kind of go over a couple of things before we wrap up. But if we go to, let's see here, Lafayette, I think it's only like 5% of the students get a merit scholarship. Um, so there is that ability. I think the likelihood of a successful merit appeal at Lafayette is very low because that's just a very small part of their business. But it does not hurt to try. One of the things you can kind of leverage here with College Aid Pro is, let's take a look at the percentage. Yeah, so only 5% of students receive some sort of merit scholarship at Lafayette. So you're in a very, very small company. They don't have a lot of merit scholarship programs. Down here, you can kind of see the different programs, and there's really only two. Um, so this gives you a bit of ammunition. You could kind of click on these URLs to drill in. So the likelihood, the expectation should be no on a merit appeal, but it's worth a shot. The worst they could do is say no. So that's how I would approach that. I understand that they've added some scholarships of 10 to 20,000 also. Maybe that's the case. Again, these private colleges can kind of make up their rules as they go along. And again, with this kind of new atmosphere of being able to recruit kids after May 1st, and also in this COVID landscape, these colleges are very worried about filling their beds. So let's face it, they have tremendous endowment funds. So if they want, they can go ahead and grab additional funds. And that's why we always say it's, have realistic expectations, but these private colleges, if they want that student enough, you make a good case. Yes, they can go find the money if they really want to. And some schools are better than others. That's just some schools are tough break, go to your second choice. Other schools, they can be flexible. So always worth the time and effort. A couple of things, and I wanted to start with this, but I completely forgot, but that's okay. So as we've been discussing, and for those of you who've been with us for a bit, that, we are not happy with these federal FAFSA changes. We think it's going to hurt a lot of families. And so we're putting our money where our mouth is. We started a petition, which is approaching about 6,000 signatures. We'll put that in the follow up. But along with that, like I said, we're putting our money where our mouth is. So we hired a PR firm. We're making a very big investment from a monetary standpoint to see if we can't make some waves and at least have the conversation with these decision makers in the government, to kind of right some of the wrongs here. I think their intentions are good. I just don't think, I don't think they're in a position to make these changes, because whether it's us, many of our friends and folks who work in the financial aid office are just kind of blown away at some of this. But in any event, we got our first publication of sorts, and we'll kind of send this out. I'll put this in the chat, but kind of tooting our own horn here a little bit, but also, we want to prove to you guys, not prove to you, but just show that we really are making a go at this. But this was ABC News kind of picked us up, and Matt Carpenter was quoted in here. You can read it, but it's all about Biden and their plan to potentially forgive some loans. And just a very high level, like our take on this is, if you go ahead and forgive loans, that's fine. Whether it's 10,000, 50,000 bucks, is that really changing the root of the problem? Or are we just going to forgive federal loans every 10 years? So that's our stance. Is that's fine, but this doesn't solve the root of the problem. And you can kind of see that here, where we got Matt Carpenter kind of quoted in here. We're super proud of it because we're starting to really take this to a national stage and, really generate some volume, some traffic around this, get a groundswell, because like I've said before, it's a little corny, but, we feel like it's us as a collective, meaning us at CFS, our members here, and as a collective, we could start to move this ball in the right direction. So I just wanted to share that. And we'll Slack that link out, but we're also super proud of it as well, because we think we've worked. I think we could honestly say with the most families over the past 15 years that going through this process, and it's like we put 10,000 of our own children through college. Now, a couple of things I wanted to touch upon here, a brand new feature, and let me step out 1 second. Working from home, homeschooling, virtual learning, whatever you want to call it. I think everyone kind of understands the burden. But if you're in your family portal here, what you'll notice is a new module. So we just built this, we just deployed this. So this is a private scholarship search engine. Now we're going to be talking about private scholarships a little bit more. This will be kind of the first kind of intro to it. But, private scholarships, there's some kind of myths and realities to it, right? Private scholarships are grant scholarships that come from private organizations, civic organizations, individuals. It's grants or scholarships that are not coming from the government or the colleges. Okay. The research shows that it's only about 3 to 5% of the monies that go towards college come by way of private scholarships. So in some ways you can make the argument that it only moves the needle a small amount. However, when we talk about a $300,000 investment for one kid, 3 to 5%, that does move the needle. So we kind of really accepted that, and so instead of sending our members, our clients out to some of these external private scholarship search engines, who essentially will grab your email address and then just resell you and spam you and things like that, sell your data. We built our own. So this is safe, secure. It's in your family portal. And, all of these search engines pull off the same data, which gets updated quarterly. So now we're just giving you a very easy way to sift through. There's about 6,000 private scholarships. You can kind of put your filters in, search by amounts, search by residency, kind of filter. If you wanted to filter and only look at private scholarships that, require financial need based, you can filter those. With private scholarships, for the most part, the majority are not tied to, whether your EFC is, on the lower side or whether you're need eligible. I think it's fair to say that the majority of times it's all based on merit and the different kind of, qualifications. But there are some that are tied to need based. So if you're a need based family, you can filter those out. So it gives you the ability to kind of filter these to, and really what we're trying to do in this whole sea of private scholarships, let's kind of filter down to the ones that I'm going to have the best shot at actually winning. So you could kind of look into the URLs, you could jump right out and look at the specifics. I recommend, really, this is an exercise that the student can and should do, because you have to read through and make sure you are eligible, you meet the qualifications. And many times there is, an application that has to be done or an essay that has to be done. If it's a scholarship that the deadline is not passed and you want to kind of come back and revisit it, you can favorite it. It's going to be right here in your favorites. So you can kind of work through this. So this is one of those exercises as we're in between kind of appeals and then figuring out how to pay for it. And the last kind of resort being borrowing. The reason why we appeal is because we're trying to get more free money. Private scholarships can kind of be the exercise during this time to kind of try to capture some free money. So this is a great resource that is now in your tool that you could utilize for free. I'd recommend, your student spending a decent amount of time here. And then the other thing with private scholarships too, that often gets overlooked because of, these search engines that like this is, you always want to start local. So even with this tool that we're providing everybody, the first place I'm going to point everyone to for private scholarships is right in their guidance office. Typically, the guidance office around this time, maybe it's already happened, will have a packet of local scholarships. Okay. So these local scholarships, they're your highest chances for success. And a lot of times they get overlooked because folks are looking for these big national, Coca-Cola, Google, things like that, where the percentages of actually winning those are minuscule. Local scholarships are going to give you your highest. And if you're able to generate another $3,000-4,000 in private scholarships, that's a home run. Okay, so wanted to shed some light on this new feature. Okay, so leverage that. Love to hear your feedback on it as well. What's working, what's not working. We could always iterate on that. And the other piece of this puzzle is because now we're transitioning using actual awards, right? Actual information. And it's why it's important for everyone to get their award information in this tab, is because it will now start to push over into the how to pay page. Okay. And what you'll notice up here is we have an awards and we have projected. Now, you'll also notice here there's a star next to some of these colleges. If there's a star next to it, that means you have entered your financial aid award data on that awards page. It also tells the system that you've been accepted here. So if we go to Gettysburg, it defaults to projected, but now we want to start using the actual award information. So all that information you put on the awards page is going to push through, and now we can start working with some actual figures, really getting down to brass tacks. So we can kind of take a look and see, okay, well, this family, the merit scholarship, which is going to be good for the 4 years, the need-based grants are going to be good for the 4 years, understanding what this total net cost is going to be, what the pre-approval amount is. Okay. And I usually like starting with the totals and working back. And don't worry, we're going to spend a lot of time on actually kind of manipulating this into the most strategic way. By default, the system takes the totals that we put for our pre-approval and just kind of equally spreads them out over the 4 years. But that might not be optimal for you. And for example, we look at this case right here. And Vern, if any questions are coming in, feel free to stop me. But we have a total of 100. We have a total net cost of around 160. We have around $116,000 in resources. And if we kind of look at this on a year-to-year basis, we're coming up about $7,000 short to pay for year one based on this plan. So what we might want to do is, okay, well, we know we're going to have to come up with, there's a gap of $42,000. And, our recommendation, if borrowing is anywhere on the radar, you want to start by maximizing the federal student loan. And that equals $27,000 over the course of the 4 years, right? And we'll get into the details on why it is the best, but that starts to then put a dent into what the remaining funding gap is. Okay, so we're $15,000 short. We actually are only $1,500 short based on this plan with paying the first year bill. So what we might do there is just say, okay, well, we'll bring this down to 11. We'll make this 15,000. And now we're at a little bit of a surplus. So this page allows you to work with the actual numbers. It allows you to manipulate your pre-approval kind of resources, your budget. And then ultimately, and we're going to spend some time over this over the next several weeks, is, well, once the resources are there, what's the best way to position that? Just kind of a teaser in kind of where we're evolving to, and also making sure as a family, you're getting in here, getting your awards on the awards page. And if you're on the how to pay, start working from the awards, because now we're working with actual figures. And it's going to give you the ability to really start to get some ideas generating around, okay, what can we really contribute from cash flow? Can we do 10,000 a year? Can we do more than that? Because the ultimate scenario, the grand slam, is you could put your son or daughter through college, undergrad, with zero borrowing. The next best thing, which it's not a grand slam, but it's a home run, is you limit that borrowing to just the federal student loan. Okay. Just that 27,000. Because what that means is parents are not tied to that loan whatsoever. That's in the student's name. And that's a very reasonable amount of undergrad student loan debt. Okay. The next best thing, which I guess, we'll call it a triple, is you're able to secure an undergrad degree and limit the total 4-year borrowing to equal to or less than whatever the starting salary is of the discipline your son or daughter is going into. What can help you kind of take a look at that is this button right here. We strongly recommend limiting loans to be no greater than the starting salary of the chosen major. Kind of gives you a very high level look. So if we're, I guess, communications or what have you, we see the average salary. So the total loans we want to keep, in and around that or below. Okay. And then that's not to say you can't justify going to a college that might require borrowing above that, starting salary barometer. But in those situations, how we coach it is, hey, caution, right? We're not just going to jump into this, kind of knowing we could go borrow and get that money, but we want to think through this. And that's when we'll start leveraging some of the reports on, well, what does that borrowing look like? And how is that borrowing going to affect us for the next, whether it's a student, whether it's a parent, whether it's a combo, how's that going to affect us for the next 10 years or 25 years, depending on your repayment schedule? So getting clear on what that financial fallout is going to be. This report does a really good job here where it takes the net costs, the pre-approval amount, which is the resources that you have available to pay, and then what the funding gap is. So that's what potentially has to be borrowed and what those loan payments look like, whether it's 10-year or 25-year. So again, we're not, dissuading anybody, but we just want all our clients to go into whatever school they pick and whatever those financial ramifications, go in eyes wide open, kind of see the finish line before you get started. So, I just want to make sure everyone was clear on leveraging the tool. And at this point, when we transition over to how to pay, start to get those wheels turning, because the last thing we want to do and what the colleges hope you do is, okay, we got into school, we don't have to pay the bill till August. They want you to kind of put the blinders on, think the process is over, and then all of a sudden be like, holy shit, how am I going to pay for this thing? You're going to call them and they're going to say, well, go take a Parent Plus loan. And because they know it's very easy. You could get approved for pretty much whatever you want with a couple of clicks of the button. So as long as you have decent credit. But what we want to try to do is, push off that borrowing. We're going to go into detail over the next several weeks on borrowing as well, but I just wanted to kind of share that. So I've been running my mouth. Vern, I'll kind of let you kind of, share any parting thoughts here. We're kind of up at the hour. Hopefully we hit all the Q&As. So.
Yeah. So final thoughts kind of on appeals, which kind of what we talked about most. There's really no downside to it, right? Should we, right? They're not going to take any money away. They're not going to rescind your kids, admission because, you sent a few emails and made a few phone calls. In fact, a lot of times, and we preach this during the webinars, that's kind of a lot of times how we get the best results, especially when you might not have the most ammunition to kind of throw at them. So, someone asked, Oberlin offered us whatever, should we continue to go back at them? Sure. Right. Why not? I mean, it's a matter of just picking up the phone, send an email. So, again, and Bill just illustrated in terms of borrowing, you want to try to lower those costs, as much as you can. So with the appeal, stay persistent. Again, the goal as far as the need-based aid, right, is lowering the EFC. That's the name of the game, right? By whatever method, wherever situation you fall, you have to lower the EFC. And then for the merit, leveraging other awards, et cetera. Seeing the next award that a particular school may give, using the CAP tool. It's an unbelievable tool. Use it for all its capacities. But go through that appeal process, right? So long story short, there's no downside, there's none to lose. Worst case scenario, your status quo, you are where you are.
Yeah. All right. So Thank you, Matt, and thank you for joining us. I'm sure you're going to be seeing more of Matt Mulhern as we kind of go through this in the future. He brings a ton of knowledge, ton of expertise here. Hopefully, we hit all questions, but as always, especially as we grow, if we're unable to address a question, leverage the community feature in your membership. So log into your membership, go to community, you post it, we live there, we're going to get right back to you. Usually it's same day. If not, it's, within 24 hours. So leverage that tool. And then anybody who wants to raise their hand, wants to work with a human being, we can provide that as well. You could schedule a consultation with one of our coaches. So, all right, guys, we're at the hour. Thank you for everyone. Spread the gospel here, and you know where to find us if you have more questions.